Over the past couple of decades, there has been a lot of media fanfare and some fear about the pace of rapid economic change in Asia. In the name of development, China and India are building new border roads and reopening old border posts for increased trade opportunities. You may think that opening borders for trade will create more opportunities for economic growth, but in this case, it creates more limitations for some people. This is to some extent a global phenomenon. My research looks at how this works in the Himalayan borderlands between two states that are swiftly becoming major players in the global economy. Are they opening it up? Or is it all a charade? Working with two generations of traders who have sold and purchased goods across Himalayan borders between the 1950s and now, I ask, how does this so-called free trade work in a heavily controlled border region like this one? This research was necessarily historical and multi-sided. I spent time with elderly Tibetan traders who were the kings of trade in the 1950s before the border closed in 1962. They brought sheep wool and yak tails from Lhasa, Tibet, which were exported to buyers around the world. In fact, the white yak tails were used for making beards for Santa Clauses in malls, which explains their popularity. I also worked with the children of these traders who resumed trading when the border between Tibet and India was reopened in 2006. They were looking forward to reigniting economic relationships across the border in 2006. However, they found that the promises of unlimited free trade across an open border were anything but. The flimsy old barbed wire boundary was taken away, but it was replaced by hard 7-meter stone walls. Indian traders were affected as well. They were only allowed to import 15 kinds of commodities from the China side. The list of allowed goods was limited to items from the past, like yak tails and wool, but no mobile phones or media players. So, opening a border often limits certain kinds of movement, and it creates more opportunities for state regulation. Moreover, in contrast to the 1950s, trade was only allowed along a single route that couldn't handle the monsoon rains, causing landslides that regularly wiped out the roads. So, while a conventional globalization narrative is often about increased connections and transnational mobility, in fact, the reality of cross-border trade is nothing like this. Traders are prone to being blocked, but are also forced to divert around closed borders. This is particularly the case for minority groups such as the Tibetan traders, the kings of trade from the past. Many were unable to compete with Chinese traders who could more easily navigate the new policies. Still, other Tibetan but also Indian traders carved out new routes, new markets, or returned to the barter system in order to survive. Opening and closing borders and the people who move around these restrictions present a human geography of economic change that is often overlooked in the master narrative of development in China and India. In fact, the global impact of these informal economic processes in border areas is severely underestimated.